Balake. Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is here, everyone. Welcome back for more SPTV, where every day is a great day not to be in a cult. I hope you guys are in for a wild ride this afternoon. What did I title this video? Diddy, Leonardo DiCaprio, Danny Masterson, and Scientology. Insider speaks out. Let me set the stage for you briefly. First of all, the connections that continue to pop up between Scientology and its celebrities, who are also predators. And so the Scientology verse and the Diddy verse continue to amaze me. Now, last week, a gentleman named Dale Wheatley did an interview on the Popcorn Planet YouTube channel, and it was talking about a book that Dale wrote about an indie film that he made back in 2001 with Leonardo DiCaprio and Toby Macguire. And there's a whole tale, there's a whole saga relating to that indie movie. Dale wrote a book, I think he published just last month, where the book is called Too Real. And I'll show it to you right here. This is on Amazon. You can get it right there. I've been going through select portions of this book today. It is pretty incredible. Okay. So Dale was talking about this book, and he was talking about Leonardo DiCaprio and Diddy and a whole bunch of stuff. And he was telling a story in this interview of, something that happened on Christmas morning in 1995 that involved Leonardo DiCaprio, an unnamed, extremely famous TV actress from the mid-90s, an incident of, let's just say, an adult nature that was playing out in a bedroom in front of an audience. And he mentioned that Scientologist Ethan Suplee was in the corner videotaping the entire thing. Now, as soon as I heard that, my first reaction was, well, I know Ethan Suplee is a very long-term dedicated Scientologist. I know the amount of interrogations and auditing sessions that Scientologists go through. I know that in these auditing sessions, not only do they spill all their own guts and divulge all of their own personal embarrassing information, but they do the same for everyone in their lives, because it's just part of the auditing process. There's nothing is considered, meaning there's nothing in an auditing session that you would be asked to discuss that you're allowed to not discuss. There's no such thing as, oh, I promised that person I wouldn't say anything. That does not fly in an auditing session. It's not, an auditor is never allowed to allow you to not say something. So instantly, I know that Scientology has all this incredibly embarrassing dirt on not only Leonardo DiCaprio, but on the unnamed, extremely famous television actress who Dale didn't name in his book, but I promise you, Ethan Suplee named that actress in his auditing sessions. And it immediately tied in to, you know, the whole blackmail nature of everything we're learning about from the Diddyverse, which is very similar to everything we learned about from the world of Jeffrey Epstein and all this stuff. So what I was a little amazed to learn is that, you know, I did that reaction video about Ethan Suplee having all this dirt on not only Leonardo DiCaprio and the actress. I did that reaction video and did that commentary without actually even knowing that it's mentioned in the book. And I want to very briefly share this portion of the book with you. And then I'm going to bring Dale Wheatley himself on, and we are going to have a very long and interesting chat. So I hope you guys have a lot of time this afternoon, because we are going to be taking our time. So check this out. In this portion of the book, Dale is talking to his friend Jerry, I believe, and it's well after the incident with Leonardo DiCaprio and this actress, and they're rehashing a little bit of it. Okay, so Dale says he's been acting weird. I decided to tell Jerry about Emily Foster. Now, Emily Foster is the fake name that he's given this actress because he doesn't want to out her in his book. But I swore him to secrecy first. He was blindsided. I'm just going to skip a little bit. Dale, what is going on with your friends? Dale says, honestly, I think they're just wildly immature. This is the kind of shit that you do when you're a kid. Emily Foster is a household name. If that got out, it would destroy her career. Dale says, Ethan filmed it too. It's bizarre. Jerry's eyes widened. The light turned green. Jerry hit the gas. Why would Leo allow that? Is he trying to throw away both of their careers at the same time? Dale says Ethan won't show it to anyone. Jerry says, well, what if someone gets their hands on it? What then? What about the Scientologists? Believe me, they would love to get their hands on some Leonardo DiCaprio compromat. I think that means compromising information. Dale says, I don't know. I don't think Ethan would do anything like that. Oh, I forgot to put my computer on Do Not Disturb. So let's do that right now. Okay. Dale says, I don't know. I don't think Ethan would do anything like that. And Jerry says, you think Ethan loves Leo more than his religion? Dale says, yes. Jerry says, sounds naive to me, Dale. And he fell silent for a moment. I couldn't believe that was in the book. There is so much more in the book. And from chatting with Dale behind the scenes, I found out he has personal experience with, well, first of all, you got Leonardo DiCaprio, Toby Macguire, not Scientologists. Ethan Suplee is in the book. Bijou Phillips is in the book. Danny Masterson mentioned in the book. Marissa Ribisi was actually in Dale's movie. Giovanni Ribisi, Dale has personal experience with Giovanni. Juliette Lewis. Well, I think he said he doesn't personally know Juliette Lewis. Jason Lee. The worlds are colliding, folks. The worlds are colliding, and there is so much to discuss. So without any further ado, here is the man himself, Dale Wheatley. Thanks for joining me, Dale.
So glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Aaron. Hello, everyone.
So, when I did my video last week talking about your interview with Andy on Popcorn Planet, and I said, that I either said I wanted to do a chat with you or that we were going to be doing a chat. I got some emails and they said, Aaron, watch out. Dale's he's out for Leonardo DiCaprio. He's just out to take down Leonardo DiCaprio. Be warned. And so why are people saying, why would someone feel that way? And how would you respond to that?
Well, I think the confusion is that it's the other way around. I think it's Leonardo DiCaprio was out for me. It was Leonardo DiCaprio who came out and destroyed my life. I didn't do anything to that man ever. So I just think that it's just, it's an interesting take, considering I'm the one speaking out. Since 2014, I have spoken out loudly. I have now written a book that I did not even run past lawyers. And, some people might think that foolish. When you read the book, you probably won't, because the truth is in the book. And nothing was said or done in the book out of malice. It's the story of my life. And it just so happens that in my life, somebody like Leonardo DiCaprio decided to maliciously destroy and defame my world, my career, my friends. When you read the book, and for those who've read the book, they've experienced it. You literally kind of go through what I went through. I experienced an extreme abuse of power. And probably the reason why most people don't know about it is because it doesn't include violence. But the results weren't very different. Like my life has been a shambles. And really going through this process of late, like this book in particular, has been a part of sort of reclaiming my power and kind of reclaiming my life and my story. But also exposing the truth. We're at a different age. I was screaming from the treetops for a long time. I don't have Leonardo DiCaprio's, sort of power to, and voice. So it's just a sort of, a bit of a longer haul for me. But I think that any comments about that are just people who are not properly informed. It's the other way around. Leonardo DiCaprio set out to destroy my life, and I'm just fighting to get it back.
That does make sense. And actually, when I read the intro, the foreword to your book, it did occur to me to actually read that live on video in the beginning here, but I actually totally slipped my mind. It is interesting. Truth is always a defense against libel or slander. And, that's what I fall back on in all of my videos about Scientology and Scientologists is like, sue me. Please do me a favor and sue me. I'll destroy you in discovery because I deal in truth. And even if Scientology were to be like, well, we think you're stretching the truth here and we think you're stretching the truth there, I'd be like, and what about the rest of it? That's what I mean. Like that is really the ultimate defense. And that's kind of what you say in the foreword of your book. You say, look, I haven't even run this by a lawyer because I'm not looking to have someone tell me what I should or shouldn't say. What I'm saying is the truth, and I will stand on the truth. I thought that was pretty powerful. Yeah.
And I think we're entitled to our story. And, again, I'm not out to defame him. He's also in the public eye. So there's a lot in terms of, there's just a lot of circumstances that allow this story to be told. But I'm entitled to my life story. They took away my movie. you know, and this is the part that, you know, people don't realize. It's like, we live in America. They took away my movie. They banished my film from the audience for which it was intended. And so I'm not going to let them take my words, you know. And, you know, one thing that the preface says that I would love your audience to know about is that this book is the result of Leonardo DiCaprio. I did a documentary series with New York Post, and that aired in 2019. And at the end of that documentary, DiCaprio called me a liar, publicly called me a liar, and he also accused me of stealing from the film we made together. I couldn't believe that he had the audacity to do something like that. And then I realized, of course he does, because these guys work with utter impunity, because they have the power to influence and buy their way out of any situation practically. So especially when it's not actual criminal situations, they're just thinking the damage they can do that isn't criminal when it comes to like defamatory stuff, destroying your life, destroying your relationships, all that stuff, which only ends up in a civil court where really only the rich prevail. And, you know, they've got like carte blanche there. So all I have left is my voice and my words, and I'm not going to let them take that away from me. So that's why I didn't go to a lawyer or anybody and allow them to try and stomp all over it. Because you know, when somebody publicly calls you a liar and a thief, I think you have a right to respond. And I responded with a thick and juicy, 562-page tome that speaks the truth. And they're welcome to respond to it in any way they want. You know what I mean? So anybody who has any question about my intentions or whether or not I have integrity or not, well, it's right here. You know, I mean, fight it. You know, I'm not afraid of any of what's in this book. I understand why they would be.
It is a long book.
It's not, though. It reads super fast. Like, read some of the views. If you're on the fence about reading the book, go read some of the views. It reads like it's mostly dialogue. I'm kind of a dialoguist as a writer goes, and it's very enjoyable for that reason alone.
Well, since we do have a lot of time to get into all the Scientology stuff, before we do that, let's just take a moment and talk a bit more about your story in this movie and your book. So, if correct me, obviously, if I get any of the dates wrong, you know, by the time you made this movie with Leonardo DiCaprio and Toby Macguire, Leo was already a superstar.
So no,
and
so let me.
But this was like post-Titanic. This was post-Titanic and everything, wasn't it?
So we made this movie. We shot this movie in 1995. The Christmas incident where Leo made a sex tape with Ethan Suplee filming it with that actress. That was Christmas 1995, and we made our movie in the summer of 1995. We shot it. We had it sort of ready for market, or ready to at least shop the movie in the summer of 96. So when they interfered with the movie would have been released in early 97. Prior to Titanic. As a matter of fact, Leo's agents wanted us to release it after Titanic because they said we'd make a lot more money. And RD and I, the director of Don's Plum, and with whom I was partnered, he and I were absolutely adamant that we wanted the movie to kind of like we wanted to see what the movie was going to do on its own merits and not on the idea that he became a big star because of Titanic. So at the time that we were going to release our movie, it was What's Eating Gilbert Grape, Leonardo DiCaprio. You know, Basketball Diaries.
He was nominated for an Oscar for that one, right?
That's right.
Is that the one? Was Juliette Lewis in that movie, or am I thinking of the one she did with Giovanni Ribisi?
No, she was in that.
She was.
Yeah, that's when their friendship was formed. Yeah.
So I see Titanic came out in December 97. Had he already shot Titanic when you guys shot your film?
No. He didn't start shooting Titanic. We shot our film in 1995. Yeah. So he shot Titanic in I guess that was he's really in 96. So yeah, he started shooting it in 96. He went and shot Romeo and Juliet first, and then he came back for a little bit. We hung out, had some fun, whatever, and then he busted off to Titanic real quick. There's a really fun scene in the book about it, actually, about like him, in the dilemma of what movie to take before he ends up taking Titanic. It's kind of neat. Kind of like,
who do you feel had a bigger role in tanking the release of your film? Was it Leonardo DiCaprio or Toby Macguire?
Well, that's kind of a bit of a strange question, or not a strange question. It's a tough question to answer because it's kind of both. Because, but it's Leo ultimately, because Leo had the power. So it was Leo's power that was exercised. Leo stopped Don's Plum from happening, and he did so illegally. But again, it's a civil situation, So to fight him requires enormous amounts of money and resources, none of which we had. But that's the reality of the situation. Toby, however, was the cause of it all. He's the guy who wanted Don's Plum to burn. I mean, that's literally a quote. He wanted Don's Plum to burn. And so and it's a bit mysterious as to why, and we'll talk about this maybe now or later or whatever. But I have some theories around it that I express in the book, and maybe we don't want to spoil that for your audience, for those of you who are going to read it. But yeah, does that answer that?
It does. And I too was worried about spoiling what you say at the very end of the book about people's motivations and what happened. Let's not give it away.
Yeah.
But let's see. I see some people in the comments asking, making sure they're understanding the name of this movie. First of all, the name of the book is Too Real, a Hollywood memoir. I do also have here your website, DaleWheatleyWrites.com. And the name of the movie is...
If I could just interject, you can also go to freedonsplum.com, which is kind of a more known, if anybody knows that, and it'll point to this site as well.
Let me, while we are here, pull it up.
It's the same site.
Oh, it is the same site?
Mm-hmm. It's just a little easier to... Dale Wheatley Writes was just something I ended up deciding I was going to hub it all together, if you will. But
okay, yeah, I think it's just the fact that this title, Don's Plum, can be heard as different things. So, but the viewers can see that there. The name of the movie is Don's Plum.
Don's Plum.
Do we want it?
You can get, you see there right there, you just put your email address in and you'll get an HD link. I'm not going to use your email address for marketing purposes. If you're interested in anything I have, you know where to get it. It's right there. So if you put your email address in there, you'll get popped a link, and you'll also have, access to me if you want to ask some questions or whatever about the movie. I have a pretty good time, with fans of the film. It's a fun art house film. And yeah, so just to clarify for the audience, but yeah, just visit the site, pop your email address in, get the email. If you end up reading the book, by the way, another thing I just love to let everyone know is that you can read the book for free on Kindle Unlimited. There's a free trial that lasts 3 months. The book reads, I'm telling you, it reads like lightning. So it'll be done in a week tops if you read every day. And you can do it all for free. So that's kind of another thing that I kind of set it up as, because I just, what I really want is, I don't make any money on Don's Plum. I've never made any money on Don's Plum, but for the $187 that I speak about in the book. As far as my book is concerned, I worked on it for 4 years. If I make any money on it, I fucking earned it.
Absolutely.
Can I say that?
Absolutely. Right? You can totally say that.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's maybe our first entry point into the Scientology topic. I'm always surprised how many people are shocked when I say in my videos that Ethan Suplee is a Scientologist, has been a Scientologist for a very, very long time, is married to Juliette Lewis's sister. Ethan Suplee has been in the LA Scientology celebrity crowd for decades now. He was one of Danny Masterson's best friends. He was one of Ashton Kutcher's best friends. And so again, I'm always surprised that people don't know that, but it's the internet. At the time that this happened, and you're saying now this is 1995, so that's 30 years ago. You and your friends and your circle already knew that Ethan Suplee was a dedicated Scientologist. What can you tell me about your world coexisting with the worlds of these dedicated Scientologists, with all of this activity happening that to a Scientologist would be incredibly unethical activity, substance abuse, or substance use, making sex tapes, that kind of stuff. Scientology is somewhat of a strangely puritanical movement for having sort of been somewhat of a hippie-ish free thought kind of thing back in the early 60s. It's become this very puritanical thing. So the stuff that you write about in your book that Ethan Suplee was involved in, that one of his best buddies, Leo DiCaprio, was involved in, it would surprise a Scientologist. What did you guys know of Scientology? What did you guys know of Ethan's involvement in Scientology? Anything you want to tell me about this?
I didn't know anything really about Scientology. To me, Scientologists were just the happy people. They were the happiest people. They were always fucking smiling. I was like, what are they eating? But other than that, I didn't really know anything about it. And they were also the guys on the streets on Hollywood Boulevard trying to pull me in, and I was turned off by that whole thing. And I knew that there was a certain Puritan sort of thing going on. I knew that they were against drugs and stuff like that. But as far as substance abuse goes, Ethan Suplee was like one of the most ferocious drinkers I ever knew. He was just I would say that he was, probably a borderline alcoholic when I knew him. But I think his substance abuse was surrounded his own personal abuse. And I speak from experience on that, and I'm not going to get into any of those kind of details, but, I knew him personally quite well. And, he had a tough go of it. And I believe that I think he was born into Scientology, if I'm not mistaken.
If he was, I don't know about that. Meaning, if you would just ask me, I'd say no, he
Sure
joined when he was a teenager.
I'm pretty sure, I'm almost positive that he was born into it. And I think that's why he's kind of like a Catholic, like a loose Catholic, talking about like the Catholic that only shows up for like Ash. I don't know much about Catholicism either, but you know what I'm talking about when, Catholicism, like, I think he might be like he's like dedicated to Scientology, but I think he's at odds with probably some of the stuff that goes on. Cause he drank heavy.
So, does it matter to you, not to me, as a former Scientologist? And he says, Ethan Suplee went to Narconon Arrowhead in 2001 or 2002. That's a Scientology-run rehab facility. And I remember someone else in our community who was a teacher at one of Scientology schools called the Delphi Academy. And there's a few different campuses for it. That Ethan was one of her students at that school. So whether he was born into it, or I'm just speculating here, or whether one of his parents married into Scientology when he was a young kid. Either way, it seems like he's been involved for a very, very long time.
Since he was very, very young. And I'm almost certain that his sister, who was younger than him, was born into it. But yeah, he's been in it forever. And his circle was very, very much a Scientology circle. Obviously, when he broke into our crowd, it was like the quick story was that there was a series called Boy Meets World. And we had a friend on that series called Blake Sennett, he was then Blake Soper from Rilo Kiley. He and Ethan Suplee ended up being like a duo on Boy Meets World. And that's what led Ethan to our group, because we were already connected to Blake. And then all of a sudden he broke into the scene. And when Ethan broke into the scene, which was after I broke into the scene, that guy became like instantly loved. It was wild how much, and I loved him too, like deeply. He was just, there was something incredibly, loving and kind about him. I think one of the reasons why he kind of skirts the whole Scientology controversy in his life is because he's kind of like this. There's something really like beautiful and kindred about him on the surface. He's a little screwed up inside. Like, I don't want to paint this guy like the way I would have painted him back then. I would have said that he was naive and really malleable and fickle, and I would say that he would also be a bit, God, how do you put this politically correctly? He's just not very smart. Can I say it that way? Not a smart man, not a very smart man.
So what you're saying is, no, I'm not going to say it.
What you're saying is, I'm saying he could have read a few more books. Maybe you'll read this one.
Do you know what's funny? Like, I'm not even sure I knew Ethan Suplee was a Scientologist until later on when he was doing My Name is Earl with Jason Lee. Mm-hmm. And Ethan Suplee first came to my awareness in American History X with Ed Norton. Ugh. And that was Ethan. I don't remember if that was Ethan at his biggest. Like, I don't remember what year American History X came out, but when you knew him, was he at his biggest?
No, he was on Boy Meets World. He was at his smallest.
Oh, he was still a kid. He was still a young person.
Yeah. The cool thing about my story, as far as like history goes, is that this is all pre-Titanic. Everybody was like, we were all just fighting in Hollywood to be something. Like Toby Macguire was literally nobody. He had a series called, I forget what the hell it was called now. Somebody in your comments probably know, but he had a series that was like short run. Didn't last a whole lot, but anyway, and that was it. Nobody knew who the hell Toby Macguire was. And barely anyone knew who Leonardo DiCaprio was. When I fucking called my mom and said, "Mom, I can't believe this, but I think I'm going to be making a movie with Leonardo DiCaprio," she had no idea who I was talking about. And even though I told her that it was this Academy Award nominated, person, my family still rumored that I was like doing something other than film.
I saw that in your book. I saw that in your book.
Yeah.
They thought you were making a different kind of film.
A different kind of film. The kind of film that Ethan Suplee seems to like to make with Leonardo DiCaprio, perhaps.
Yes, indeed. Like it comes full circle.
Yeah.
Turns out you were involved in that film anyway. No. Okay, so let me ask you this. It seems like a silly question, but I have to ask it. Like, how did you guys even know Ethan was a Scientologist? Did these guys talk about it?
They did. They did. They did. But they didn't, like, it wasn't like evangelical in any way. There was like, Danny Masterson a few times. He mentioned a few things. Is it related to like drugs and stuff like that? Because I think I tried to pass him a joint one time, and he was like, "No," and then he actually got into a bit of an explanation about it, so, as I recall. But yep, I found out because of them. They spoke about it. I also was introduced to all, like Ethan was the gateway to all those people. I mean, I'd brushed elbows. I think I'd bumped elbows with Masterson because he also would, frequent Formosa where we spent a lot of our time. But I really didn't get to know him until Ethan Suplee came into my life and I became close with him.
It's so strange to me that Danny Masterson, even amongst his Hollywood friends, was known for being so anti-drug, but pro-rape. It's funny how that works.
Well, hey, one screws up your own self. They're more into screwing up other people's lives.
That's deep. That is deep. And I guess, yeah, he didn't want to take drugs himself, but he didn't mind drugging women. But like you said, one hurts yourself, one hurts the other person.
I get so angry. I get so fucking angry. Like hearing it, I just get so angry about it.
There is a story in your book about Bijou Phillips assaulting the director. Was it the director of the movie?
Don's Plum. Artie Robbie, yeah.
And Leonardo DiCaprio was involved in that incident. I won't tell the whole incident because it's in the book, but
yeah, it's kind of a fun little read too.
There is a story out there online about Bijou sexually assaulting someone at a party, and the incident included Leonardo DiCaprio and David Blaine, a young David Blaine.
Well.
And so I couldn't even believe when I was reading this section of your book that you had Leonardo DiCaprio and Bijou Phillips involved in this assault story. And then fast forward or rewind, because I don't know the relative dates of these two stories, to an incident of Bijou Phillips trying to take advantage of someone who was basically in a blacked out state. And
that's fast forward. Definitely.
It's definitely a fast forward. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And Leonardo DiCaprio, the incident involved Leonardo DiCaprio and David Blaine. How did Bijou Phillips ever enter your life?
I don't remember who introduced her. I just remember that when I first met her, I thought that she was really wily, and sometimes you encounter people, or sometimes I have encountered people where I felt like, oh shit, like it might be better to stay away from that person. And she was one of those people that when I met her, I was like, man, this chick is bad news. And I didn't have a basis for that, but yeah, just bad news. Hey, by the way, you know what? I just realized that I forgot to forgive the audience, forgive me. I forgot to put a perpetual battery in my camera. I'm good for another hour or so, and then I just might have to swap the battery real quick.
No problem at all.
I'm so sorry. Maybe you guys could play a song or talk about me while I'm not there.
No problem at all. It's no problem at all.
Great.
Okay, so so Bijou, other than that, like even in your book, she enters the story just because one of your friends is picking her up on the way to a party. Was she involved in the movie in any way, or involved in your life in any other way?
No, she wasn't involved in the movie. It was New Year's. This was like literally whatever it is. Was it 5 days, 6 days after Christmas, in the incident with Emily Foster, and we were at a New Year's party that Leo got us into. And Leo was, hanging out with Bijou. And here's all I'll say to your audience, and we'll just tease it this way. Leo, I'm watching this sort of just hanging out, right? There's all of my friends, and we're all hanging out, we're drinking, and I look over and I see Leonardo DiCaprio, and he leans in, and then he whispers into Bijou Phillips' ear, and then she walks away from him, and she goes and assaults Artie Robb publicly. In front of everybody, and I lost my shit on her. Like I just completely lost my shit on her, and I cursed her every breath, just because the way in which she assaulted him was so degrading and awful. So that's the event that we're talking about, and that's how Bijou sort of fits into the place, or sort of fits into the story. I don't know what Leo whispered to her. He could have said, "Go give Artie a kiss." I have no idea what, because Bijou had at that point a legend about her and the horrible things that she would do to a person. Like there was a cigar cutter incident and a man and a finger that, if you haven't heard that one, is
I've heard that story.
I don't know how true it is.
She basically cut a guy's finger off with a cigar cutter.
You've heard that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that story. So that was way back then. I knew that. Like I found out about that. Actually found out about that after she assaulted the director, and I freaked out about it. And then somebody told me that. I was like, why the fuck are you hanging out with a person who would do something like that? I don't understand people. But anyway,
I'm pretty sure she
and I cannot stand I cannot stand that woman to this very day. I just cannot stand that woman.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure she even told the story on the Howard Stern show, actually.
That's a monster, right? She's a monster. She's just short of being like her husband. A total monster. Like I don't understand. It's a part of this. It's a funny thing. Like when you talked about the emails that you received where people are like, watch out for Dale because Dale's just out for something. And it's so interesting because like we have to live with the abuses that these people just perpetuate into all of our lives. And then we have to find our way to, like, first of all, even have the fucking courage to speak about it. It takes a lot of balls to write a book that I wrote. Like I mentioned everybody. I didn't hold anybody back. I didn't hold anything back. And the reason I had to go to that length is because I can't be heard. So these big people like Bijou, DiCaprio, and all these other people, and Bijou is big because she comes from this lineage, right? So and she comes from the church, right? The church emboldens and empowers these people and elevates them even higher than they are in their already fortunate circumstances. So yeah, I mean it's a crazy world to live in.
So another second generation born and raised Scientologist, Marissa Ribisi, who, if I recall, is Marissa and Giovanni Ribisi. They're twins, I believe. Am I correct? He's got another sister, Gina, but I think Marissa is Giovanni's twin. Do you know?
I don't remember that. I knew them both, and I don't remember that.
I'm almost positive, but anyone in the live chat, please correct me if I have that wrong. And Marissa Ribisi ended up in your movie, the one with Leonardo and Toby. How did that happen? Did you already know her previously?
I'm sorry. Can you ask that again? I got.
How did Marissa end up in your movie? Did you know her previously?
Ethan. So I did know her. Yes, I knew her. I knew. So we would be. I knew them down at just by the Celebrity Center. We were always at La Poubelle and that sort of stuff, and Birds and all that stuff. So I knew her through Ethan Suplee. Ethan Suplee was like lobbied to get Marissa in the movie.
And did you know Marissa was married to Beck, who was also a Scientologist?
I did. That happened later. I did. Yeah. I was so sad that Beck became a Scientologist because I love his records, and I still do. Like I still do. And it's like maybe we can get on this a little bit later, but there's a way to separate the art, from the monster. There really is, because I don't want anybody to get canceled. I'm not here to, like, I think people say have it out for DiCaprio. I have it out for the truth. I want people to watch Don's Plum. It stars Leonardo DiCaprio. I want people to watch all of Leonardo DiCaprio's films, because one of the things that drives me fucking crazy about this world we live in is that it's not a Leonardo DiCaprio movie. It's a movie that belongs to so many people, but it's that mentality that allows and emboldens him to do the kinds of things that like banish an American film from an American market. Like it's just absolutely an outrageous thing to do. It's antithetical to everything that we are as Americans, as capitalists, whether you like capitalism or not. It's what we live under. So anyway, I just thought I'd just point that out, because it's like there's more to it. Beck's music is fucking great. Actually, he might not be such a great guy, and DiCaprio is a great actor. He is a great actor. There's no reason to not acknowledge that. He can also be a bad guy, or a guy who has done very bad things. Both of those things can be true.
Yep. Well, Beck was born and raised in Scientology, and for what it's worth, he has divorced Marissa, and he has publicly said he is not a Scientologist. He did one of these things where he sort of
got to love his music more now. That's great.
He did one of these things where he sort of pretended that he never really was, and it was just his father's thing or his parents' thing. That's a lie, but it gets him out of the violation of publicly departing Scientology, which is a suppressive act, and will get you expelled, and then your Scientology family will have to disconnect from you. If his public statements don't say that he's left, and it just says that he was never really one, then it's kind of a loophole.
I'd be jumping all over that.
I know, right? You'd think other people would be jumping all over that as well. Let's see. So, okay. So did you ever go personally to the Celebrity Center?
Nope. Never went in.
Wow.
I kind of avoided Scientology like the plague. I just got a bad vibe from it. Like I said, they were very happy and it was superficial. It was like, it was too uniformal. It was like, you guys are like, it's not fucking normal, you know?
Was I kind of want to mentally go back to the whole anti-drug thing, Danny Masterson, Ethan Suplee, Ethan having a borderline alcohol problem. It is one of these weird things where, because L. Ron Hubbard specifically made some derogatory comments about weed, but he never specifically made derogatory comments about alcohol, Scientologists just forever will be brainwashed to believe one is okay and one is the devil. I mean, it's so crazy to see Scientologists out on the street corners here in Clearwater, like protesting against legalization legislation. It's just like, what? I mean, it's just so crazy to me. But but I'm curious, since you were closer with Ethan than you were with Danny, did Ethan ever try to get on you guys for smoking weed, or like, hey man, you know, it'd be better if you didn't? Like, what was the deal there?
He would like say, you know, he'd like jab at us, like calling us drug addicts or druggies, or, you know, but no, he never, you know, that was the coolest thing about, well, that's part of why like hanging out with them was fine, because nobody ever did like push anything ever. Like as far as Scientology went, I never got, you know, there was no sort of indoctrination going on in our group, because I think they knew that it was, you know, kind of a futile thing. I mean, that's a guess, obviously, but you know, it was never ever a topic. It was just, but they were a bit of a pack, right? So there was that. There was this, you know, sort of presence, like almost never, you know. I mean, I was always alone with Ethan Suplee. We were extremely close, but otherwise, like when we were out in public, like they were always like protective of each other too. Like you know, there was this moment where I didn't know Juliette Lewis personally. We hung out a few times. There was a night where we were out partying, we were drinking. And prior to like hanging out that night, Ethan had talked a lot about how there was like all this worry around Juliette Lewis at the church about her drug use. So he had mentioned—
He told you that?
Yes, he told me that.
Because that's totally true.
Yeah, he told me that. Well, that's how I know. I don't follow, like, beyond watching the Masterson stuff on your channel. Because I'm not embedded in this world at all. I don't really follow it much beyond, you know, the people that I knew. So yeah, so he told me that was going on. So we were out partying one night, and they were watching her like a hawk. And there was like a general feeling. I got a general feeling that they were worried about her parting ways with them, like in some way. Like I just had that feeling. So we're out partying, and I'm like, I did a lot of drugs. Like I'm not like a, you know, like a drug addict, but I enjoyed drugs. I did, you know, I smoked marijuana. I still to this day smoke marijuana. And I did a lot of acid and things like that. I just really like the hallucinogens, and no apologies, man. I had a great time and expanded my consciousness and all that stuff. But I was known as that. I mean, you know, I did a lot of acid in Hollywood with a lot of my friends. And so we're at this party. We're at a bar, and we're dancing and whatever. And Juliette Lewis and I are kind of hitting on each other. And I thought she was crazy hot from Californication, you know, so and onward. So I was like, you know, oh, yeah, right on, this Juliette Lewis. This is fun. And man, did Ethan and Masterson move in? Holy shit! They literally took us apart. Like they got in between us. I was like, what the fuck is going on? I was like, you need to leave her alone, dude. She's vulnerable. She's all this shit. So there was like those kinds of exposures that were incredibly weird, for sure.
Wow. I wonder if that was before or after she was with Brad Pitt, because there was a hot minute where she was with Brad Pitt and was getting him into Scientology. And I can't remember if Brad actually did the purification rundown or if he started it and didn't finish it. But that was also around the time when she was heavy into drugs. And, you know, there was a story of Juliette Lewis being down here in Clearwater at Flag on the base. And they literally like found her in the back of her car with a needle in her arm. And like, that's how heavy it was for Juliette. And, you know, since then she's risen to the highest levels of Scientology's bridge. She's either OT7 or OT8. And ironically,
Wow.
she also tries to do this thing in the press where she pretends that she's not really a Scientologist. She's actually a Christian or something. It's so crazy. It's so crazy.
And she's not, like, she's actively lying. She's deceptive.
She's actively lying. It is not possible to be a high-level Scientologist and a Christian. It's literally impossible. But it plays well in the press.
It was like that too back then. Like, she was definitely low-key Scientologist. This is my, as I recall, like, again, I wasn't friends with her, so I don't want to misrepresent my relationship with her because it was very brief and very, it was brief. But yeah, sort of like, as far as like her sort of the legend that followed her, we'll say, was that she's like, yeah, she's a Scientologist, but meh, which, makes sense, of course, but she was doing all these drugs, which if you're a hardcore Scientologist, there's no way you're doing that.
Yeah. So, and if you didn't already know, Juliette's another one of these, like Marissa and Giovanni, actually born into Scientology, just like Danny Masterson and all of his siblings. Her father, Jeffrey Lewis, had worked with Clint Eastwood back in the day on a whole bunch of Clint's movies. And Juliette was, and Jeffrey was a Scientologist, a long-term Scientologist.
Yeah, I had no idea of any of that. I mean, there's so many of them are. Like, I think that was like Ethan's circle was very much the celebrity circle, but also a lot of the people that he was with, I think, were like, Masterson was born in, right? Born
and raised.
Yeah. So I think I think that's another reason why I think Ethan was born and raised is just, I just recall him saying so. But if I'm wrong, he was in so long that I think shared a kinship with them, having, that sort of very early exposure. And then I feel bad for Scientologists born into it, man. I don't know how you dig your way out of that. Holy shit.
It's not easy.
Fuck.
So another one of Ethan Suplee's Scientology friends, who I think he was possibly closest with than almost anyone, but who has also since left Scientology, for real, not just pretending, is Jason Lee. Did you know Jason?
Left? Oh, I knew
Jason's out. He's out.
I loved that guy. Let me tell you that there's this. I'm going to start up a bit of a TikTok channel. It's more of like it's a way to compete, promote my book, but it's also like I really like the format as far as like me just being able to shoot off a minute, thought about whatever it is going on in my world, in my universe. And one of the things I keep thinking about is how, there's like a witch hunt for Hollywood. There's a witch hunt for all these people who are bad. Right. And I'm digging that, but I have a hard time with this whole, let's burn everybody. There are these people who are innocent, and they're not even participating in this stuff. Like, Hollywood is filled with good people. Like, I think there are far more good people than there are bad people. There's this question of complicity, right? Like, it comes up a lot. It got thrown in my face when I did the Popcorn Planet piece, because people are like, "Whoa, you were there. You watched him tape this horrid event with this TV star." And people just don't realize, like, there was 2 consenting adults. They don't realize that that it lasted 2 or 3 minutes. They don't realize that you're in a position where you're now faced with some of the worst ultimatums you can be given without anybody saying a bloody word. Leonardo DiCaprio, on his knees in my bedroom, whispering audibly, we can all hear it, dirty talking into the ear of a world famous television actress, while it's being filmed with Ethan Suplee. I'm in the middle of making a feature film with these guys in it, and I've got to make a decision in that moment whether or not I object to it and potentially blow everything up. I don't even know the circumstances. Like, I wasn't aware of the circumstances that led to the moment. I wasn't there at the origin of it. I was brought up the stairs. They were like, you got to see this. You got to see the situation on Christmas Day party. People get dragged into things like P. Diddy, man. Like, there's all these people who I guarantee are just like, they're hanging around, and they didn't know that they were being invited to a party where crimes were being committed. They didn't know they were being invited to a party where people are being compromised. And I just feel for people who are, because I've been in that situation. I don't believe for a second that anything other than what I witnessed happened, but there's no way I could have known whether or not Emily Foster had been drugged. There's no way I could have known that. Mm-hmm. Now, am I complicit by standing there and not doing anything about it? And I'm complicit in the whole, what would have been a crime in that situation? I want to emphasize, I don't believe a crime was committed, and I don't believe that Emily Foster was drugged. We spoke after the event. I'm quite confident that she was acting of her own volition, albeit manipulated. So, and that's an opinion. But you follow where I'm going with that?
Yeah, no, it's the age old question. It's I mean, as I was reading that part of the story, those thoughts were going through my mind as well.
Yeah.
A situation can be one where there are no winners. It feels like no matter what you do, it results in something bad, and that's it's a timeless dilemma.
I did digress away from Jason Lee, though, and I would love to just finish on it, because you're literally the nicest guy I think I ever met in Hollywood. Never said a bad word about anybody. I just loved him. I mean, I just loved him. And as a matter of fact, when I found out that he was at what I thought was relatively deeply involved in Scientology, this after had already left Hollywood, I was so deeply disappointed, because that's how much I love that guy. So it is so absolutely heartwarming to hear that he made it out, and I just hope he's getting all the support he needs too. That's awesome.
He is out, and he was dedicated enough to Scientology to have received the blessing from Tom Cruise to what was the movie they did together? It wasn't Magnolia, was it? What was the movie? Was it Magnolia? Here, I'm going to go Jason Lee Magnolia movie. Wait, I'll go Jason Lee Tom Cruise movie. Vanilla Sky.
Yeah. Oh,
Vanilla
wow.
Sky.
That's
Do you notice when you have someone, you even mentioned this in your book, there's sort of this code amongst young up and coming actors in Hollywood with their friends. If I make it first, I'm gonna bring you with me.
Yeah.
And I've always wondered why Tom Cruise and John Travolta have not done more to platform fellow Scientologist actors. Now, John Travolta actually did. There's Jim Meskimen and Tate Rupert, particularly Tate Rupert, are two not very well-known Scientology actors who John would put Tate in every one of his movies. In fact, side story here, there was a 2-year period where I left staff in Philadelphia working for Scientology, and I moved to Hollywood with my brother, and we just sort of fucked around for a couple years. And I went and I signed up with Central and Cynics Casting and did a bunch of background work. And imagine my surprise when the first job I get called to is a movie called The General's Daughter. No idea who it is. It's John Travolta, Madeline Stowe, and James Cromwell, it turns out. And Tate Rupert is a Scientologist who's in a ton of Scientology's internal auditor training movies called the technical training films, right? If you're a Scientologist and you've done your auditor training, you know who Tate Rupert is by sight. He's a celebrity in Scientology. The world has no idea who he is, but in Scientology, he's a celebrity. Okay, so I'm just an extra. I'm having fun. I'm working on this movie for like 3 weeks straight. It's shooting night shoots out in the hills, doing like army flashback scenes. It's a blast. Okay. One day, one of the assistant directors is walking around asking people to take off their hats, checking hair color back when I had hair color, eye color, height. Anyway, she's like, come with me. And she takes me over to a trailer, and out walks Tate Rupert. And I get selected to be his stand-in for the rest of the movie.
That's amazing.
And
Did he know you were a Scientologist?
Well, I said, oh, I know you from all the tech films. And he goes, oh, you're a Scientologist. He goes, it's so good to have other uptone people on set.
Uptone.
And so John Travolta was a guy who would try to put his friends in his movies. And also, who's the actor, Sling Blade? He was married to, he's hugely famous. He was married to Angelina Jolie. Billy Bob Thornton.
Yeah.
Billy Bob Thornton has an old friend of his who owns a furniture store in the town that they grew up in, his old good best friend as a child. And he puts his buddy in all of his movies. And other directors have then seen this old childhood friend of Billy Bob's who's not an actor, right? He just gives them little background parts or whatever. And so Simon West, the director of General's Daughter, had just seen this old friend of Billy Bob's in one of his movies and called him to do a nice, fun little, 1 or 2 day shoot on the General's Daughter. So there's plenty of examples in Hollywood where people actually give their friends a break. But you know who doesn't do that? Tom fucking Cruise does not do that.
He might not. and you might be right, but there's a lot that can be done covertly, like just so much. So, you know, probably not, maybe not. And why wouldn't he do that? I don't fucking know. That's weird behavior, considering particularly how, like, at least my exposure is incredibly limited. But from what I witnessed, they were tight knit, like everybody that I knew that was in the cult. They were all very tight knit. You know, and they took when they took care of Juliette Lewis that night, taking her, you know, protecting her from my druggy ass. Like, anyway, it's just weird. Yeah, it is weird. But just, you know, bear in mind that, like, Hollywood is incredibly busy in the subterranean, you know, like there's a lot going on that nobody ever hears about or sees. So not only may Tom Cruise be helping Scientologists elevate Scientologists, and it may be done covertly. They may like say, listen, you cannot attribute these two, because they don't want necessarily to. I would say that I would bet that he is, and that it's a part of his agenda to do that. And this is a guess, these are all guesses, because I know that Hollywood does not, you know, everything is not known. And it makes more sense that he would, and it makes more sense that he wouldn't tell anyone. And the same can be said about ruining people. It's the same thing. You know, it all flies under that same, you know, subterranean level below all the noise. And the noise is there to both distract and inform and keep you away from the things that they don't want you to focus on. And so I think that, you know, there is a very good chance that Tom Cruise is actively promoting and moving Scientologists throughout Hollywood, not just actors. And, you know, the other thing he might be focused on is executives. You know, Scientology enjoys an incredible amount of fucking support from a bunch of non-Scientologists. Wouldn't you agree, in Hollywood?
Yeah.
I mean, DiCaprio is, I think, a great example of it. And maybe it's because Ethan has this video, maybe, but now that's not a problem, perhaps. Anyway, I just think that Tom Cruise could be doing a lot of work that we don't know about, and that includes, you know, placing executives, actors, and just, you know, publicists, any kind of thing that might, you know, embolden the message or help carry the message that they want through. But also, you know, Tom Cruise is fucking brilliant. Like, he comes off as come on, look, this guy's career, he's still thriving despite all of the shit that we know about him. And, you know, there's a part of that that's fame, but there's a lot of it that's brains. He's a smart man. And I know people work with him directly, and they would agree with me in that statement. In fact, they learned it from them in terms of just how absolutely brilliant he is in the execution of career. So I think,
well, there's something to be said for just not giving up. And, you know, what you're saying here about the amount of influence Tom can and may be exerting in Hollywood in favor of various Scientologists. It's one of the things that made me really scratch my head about him and Paula Wagner splitting ways and ditching the United Artists studio. You know, when I thought when him and Paula took over United Artists, I thought, oh, wow, this is like the next big step to Tom actually taking his Hollywood influence to the whole nother level.
Yeah.
And I just assumed something there must have been some fallout between them personally, because I don't know how you let go of that opportunity. All the Lions of Lambs bombed, and that cost a lot of money. And I think another movie they did under that banner bombed, but it's like, but it's Tom Cruise.
That'll do it.
You can get money for anything. What'd you say? Tell me what?
No, I wouldn't say so. I would say, like, if when you bomb twice, you often have to move on. Like, in those situations, like the oligarchs control everything. They control Hollywood, right? Part of the reason why I'm you know, I have to scream from treetops is because mainstream media will never treat me fairly, ever, because there's too much money involved. DiCaprio represents billions of dollars in commerce. And so, no, I mean, yeah, I think that again, I lost a little bit. I got a little distracted. I get so distracted sometimes because I start going down these like rabbit holes in my head of like the corruption that's going on all around us, and the way in which we have to kind of fucking, like, you know, weave through it. It's a jungle of just so much corruption, and very you know, and throughout all there's some guys like you and some people who are like, oh, help, but most of the time you're just dodging traps and peril.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. You mentioned that Scientology, or Scientologists have a lot of non-Scientologists coming to the defense and running cover for them in Hollywood. And you use Leo as an example. What did you mean there?
I mean that Leonardo DiCaprio is an incredibly powerful and influential person within the industry, and that he is he has very deep, old friendships within the Church of Scientology. And I think that he is, and that he supports those people. He was friends with Masterson. He was good friends with Masterson. He is friends with Suplee. He is very close friends with Juliette Lewis. One of the appearances that he makes, I mean, we set up a screening for him of the film that we made together. And it was the screening that we had arranged for him to come and approve the film. And it was a big deal. And he knew how big a deal it was. We'd been working for over a year at that point, spending, all the money we had. We set up a screening. He was supposed to be there, and he knew that there was going to be 100+ people, all with the expectation of seeing him. He's the big star in the thing. And what does he do? He calls us up a couple days before and says he's not going to make it because he's got to be at Juliette Lewis's birthday. So in Las Vegas, and so he was going to completely leave us totally screwed, having literally maybe 200 people, whatever. It was a packed house. I don't know how big the MGM screening room was, but it was a substantial crowd. He was just going to leave us all hanging, and then asked us to do a special screening for him. And it was a really devastating moment for us. And it was so that he could go and be at Juliette Lewis's birthday. So I just think that he has. So there's a certain amount of protection that he feels too. He's protective of his friends. He's protective of his relationships. I witnessed that myself back in the 90s. I can't imagine that's ever changed. So. And I also think that they use the same channels of corruption. So I believe that they all have access to cops and judges and DAs and everybody thing else. And so there's a certain number of, so I think they share and collaborate. I think there's a lot of knowledge between them that I think is potentially shared. This is all my opinion, right? I don't know shit. You can build conspiracy theories around it, but Leonardo DiCaprio is deeply involved with people who reputationally, right, could be damaging to him, and for which he has no association. He is not associated, but for his relationships with those people, to the Church of Scientology. So if a major controversy breaks out that might be Diddy-esque in terms of exposure of corruption, you can bet your bottom dollar Leonardo DiCaprio is going to be on that list too, right? Because he's on the Diddy list, isn't he? Right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and he's going to be on the Scientology list. So that's why I think it's a corroboration, what do you call it? Collusion. Yeah.
Yeah. Was Ashton Kutcher present in that world?
Not in my world. He came, when that 70s show hit. And so that's when, in terms of the group, that's when he kind of broke in. And at that point, I was on the outs at that point.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. Is it the agents at CAA and these other powerful agencies that really do the enforcement and the protection for a lot of these guys? Like when you say Leo has a lot of power, the first thing I think of is what's Leo's power compared to the power of his agents? And if Leo wants to get something done, does he personally make phone calls, or he's just calling his agent and the agents make phone calls? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, as it relates to what he did to me, he did both. So his agents, his manager, there's a Andy, in the Andy Signer piece I provided for him an article written in Premier Magazine. For those who weren't around in the 90s or who weren't paying attention to things like that, it was a magazine that was on the shelves back in the day that was dedicated to entertainment. And they did a feature on Don's Plum and everything that happened. And they interviewed Jason Blum. And Jason Blum confirmed that in that interview that Leo's manager told Harvey Weinstein, if Harvey Weinstein did any business with us, there would be consequences. So, that's so. Yeah, and so that was now I allege in my book, and I'm going to say this is an allegation that I've made because I don't actually have physical proof beyond what somebody told me directly who was involved. But in my book, I allege that DiCaprio directly prevented a $750,000 deal from happening, selling my film to an Italian distributor. So, but he had his agents and he had his manager and he had his lawyer do a bunch of dirty work on their behalf for, against us, throughout distributors and otherwise. So yeah, I think it's both. And I think they all use, personal intimidation as well as the intimidation of others. I think they're going to use what works or what they think is going to work. Like they have an objective, right? Destroy, suppress, oppress, and they're going to use what works or what they think will work.
Yeah, that makes sense. In your book, it's clear that at least your friend Jerry had a particular level of awareness that if you're a celebrity and you have a Scientologist friend and they have a bunch of dirt on you, that's something you might need to be worried about because of Scientology. The fact that your friend Jerry had that awareness makes me wonder how people like Leonardo DiCaprio can become so close to a well-known Scientologist like Ethan Suplee and not have any concern about that. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do. Yeah. So I'm faced with the most unbelievable amount of suppression. Like it's the power of it is so incredible. Leonardo DiCaprio has been brought before a grand jury, right? Do you know this?
No.
He had to testify before a grand jury over the Malaysian fraud over.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, he's testifying before grand juries because he's involved in these really insidious things, right? Did you know that he, when filming The Beach, destroyed ancient, pristine, prehistoric beaches? Prehistoric, never touched by humans. They were prehistoric beaches, and they went and they fucking destroyed them. And to this day, they are still dealing with the damage that he created and caused environmentally. It's just
wow,
fucking madness. But they have so much influence and power. I have receipts. I have a TV producer who's doing a spot. All on board. We're going to do a spot that's going to be awesome. You're going to get your voice out, man. I believe, I believe you. I believe the story, whatever. Great. Let's do it. 3 days later, fucking silence. Can't get him on the phone. I get it. I've got receipts. I get the email. He's just like, look, it just came down from the top. It's done. I've got Vanity Fair, who did a feature on me, right? They did a 4,000, whatever, a big one online. But it was delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed, all delayed by Leo's publicist. And they leveraged his celebrity. So the then chief editor-in-chief of Vanity Fair wanted DiCaprio at his Oscar party, and so he stifled my story in order to be able to get that. And then he only ran the story because Leo didn't show up. And I got that. I have receipts.
No way.
Receipts. Like I literally have the email from the writer, because the writer who wrote the article asked me how I felt about the article. And I said, the article betrayed the interview, completely betrayed the interview. And then he responded and wildly, I couldn't believe he was so forthcoming because he's really pissed me off again just recently. And that's why I'm happy to out him on it, because he just, in this email, he just spilled out all this like corruption that he was dealing with as far as trying to get this story out for which he was commissioned to write and on which he based a certain amount of his career, because he had like 3,000, 4,000 words invested in this thing, and getting a Vanity Fair piece of that size out is a big career move. And he now is a senior writer at Vulture. So, and that was a freelance piece that he did. So he used my story to give him this great opportunity at Vanity Fair. And, it was all like, sort of, torn and twisted or whatever. So they just have so much power. Now, to this day, I just like New York Magazine, we're on board. When they found out of the book, they were like, they're going to do an exclusive, all the shit, man. They were piling everything up. It was going to be amazing. My wife and I were like, oh my God, this is going to be awesome. We're going to be in the mainstream media right away with this book as independent artists. You can't ask for more. And then he went silent. And then I have receipts on it all. And so it's just a constant thing, dude. These guys have so much fucking power that they can act with impunity. And the problem is that it emboldened them to the point where I think that around them, if they themselves weren't directly committing crimes, around them, crimes started getting committed. And when crimes start getting committed, then victims start becoming more hurt, right? Because if you're dealing with things like being drugged, being raped, being physically assaulted, when you're dealing with those kinds of things, whereas like what I'm dealing with is more of a civil thing, right? And that's why people kind of, I don't want to say ignore me, but they're all like, oh, get over it. I mean, he literally destroyed my life. Millions of dollars I lost personally. And they're like, oh, get over it. I'm like, okay. Do you know what I mean? But The problem is they can get away with those because they have the power, they influence the money, but then the crime started happening, and that's when things are starting to fall apart because, you know, I guess when you embolden bad people, it only just makes them fucking worse, you know? I mean, I can't believe what I'm hearing from Diddy. I can't believe what's coming out of that camp.
You know, it's funny, the story that you tell about the editor of Vanity Fair being like, I'm going to kill this story so that I can get Leo to my Oscar party. And then when Leo doesn't show up to the Oscar party, he publishes the story anyway. Because that is kind of how it works with people so often, right? You know, someone's keeping your secrets, someone's doing you a favor, and then you screw them over, and then it comes back on you. Is why it is so hard to understand how the Diddy stuff, I was going to say how it stayed a secret for so long, but the truth is it wasn't a secret. Everybody fucking knew. But how it didn't go legal for so long, how there weren't other lawsuits against him for so long. It's easy to file a lawsuit. I mean, what's the name of his ex-girlfriend who filed this lawsuit recently where there's the video of him like kicking her in the hotel and whatever. Like, it's easy to file a lawsuit. How come there weren't 10 other ones like that previously? It's honestly hard. It's just kind of rhetorically asking because it's hard for me to wrap my mind around that a guy like that who must have made so many enemies along the way. Well, actually, here's a funny one that we all can see playing out in public. 50 Cent's been actually secretly outing Diddy for years now. But instead of outing him in a way that has legal ramifications, she's just been outing him in lyrics of songs.
Yeah, same with Bieber. I mean, more or less, right? I lost myself.
I think that one Bieber song might be a fake. That's
right?
a fake.
Oh, okay.
What is it? I lost my something at a Diddy party. What was it?
I lost my soul at a Diddy party or something like that.
That's a total fake.
Is it really?
Yes.
I don't listen to Justin Bieber, so it's easy to get me on that. Color me red. Well, yeah, I mean, it is amazing that they're able to get away with it, but that's just, again, like the power they have. They have extraordinary power. It's so completely out of control, and it's power we give them. I mean, it really is power we give them. Like, I get stifled by people who are like fighting. Like, there are people out there who are like want to fight for the underdog, and they want to shut me up. And it's just really weird to deal with because it's just like, well, what do you want? I mean, clearly I'm asserting at least truth. Like, I'm at least like I'm aggressively putting the truth out there. What I'm asserting is the truth. You know, like there's got to, at some point, like people have to, like, what you bring up really gets me kind of like hot in the cheeks because it's like the reason why Diddy's and Weinstein and the bad guys like these exist, Bill Cosby and Danny Masterson, is because we don't listen to the one victim. The warning signs are happening all over the fucking place, but nobody listens. Do you know how many times I heard about Harvey Weinstein taking advantage of actors in fucking Hollywood in 1995 and 1996? Constantly, and from people who were directly involved with him, working fucking directly for Harvey Weinstein. And nobody does damn anything. They don't do anything. They let the bodies pile up and then they do something about it. And that person crushed to almost nothing at the bottom was the first brave person to speak. And what we have to deal with when we speak out, I'm the first person to speak out about Leonardo DiCaprio. I've been doing it for fucking decades. I've been saying this man is a serial abuser of power. He manipulates people. He harms people. He does it because he can't get over himself, is my opinion, you know, but people want to shut me up and they want to call me this. They want to, name call me, and they're really fucking mean to me. And that's a part of why I wrote this book in the first place, because, or not in the first place, but, a part of why I wrote this book is because it's the only real way I have a voice. You can't change my words, man. You can't. This can never be taken away from me now. Right. And it can't be manipulated, not by their publicists, because you can always go back to it. The lazy people will be able to run around and call me a bad guy. The lazy people will be able to run around and, perpetuate their propaganda, but the truth lies in the book. And that's why, and I'm telling you, like, if you're sitting out there and you're being suppressed and you're having your life fucked over by people who are doing it for their own, perhaps egomaniacal purposes or whatever it may be, fight back. Fight back. That's what I say. Fight the fuck back, because nobody's going to help you but you. That's how I see it. No one's helping me but me. I mean, obviously you're helping me, and I'm so glad to have this platform. But I think you follow what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. It's funny when you said no one believes the one victim or the first victim. You might have said both. The first thing that came to mind also was sometimes people who are trying to do things behind the scenes end up then being vilified when it comes out that they even tried, because they clearly didn't do enough. So when I remember Rose McGowan has a story.
Ugh.
Well, first of all, she's got her Harvey Weinstein stories, but then she has a story where she told Ben Affleck, and Ben said, basically, I fucking told him to stop doing that.
Oh my God.
And when I hear that story, I go, well, that sounds like Ben was actually trying to actually, get the guy to change his behavior, but it gets twisted to be like, well, I guess Ben didn't go to the police, or Ben didn't stop doing movies with him, or Ben, whatever it is. I mean, at some point, even people who might have tried to do something get vilified for not having done enough. And I think that also plays a role into why people like, I don't want to know. I don't want to hear. I'm going to pretend like I never, like, people just want to stay far, far, far away from it.
The problem is that for those who are brave enough to speak out, they're done. They're finished, right? I'm a talented guy. I'm the only one who's gonna come out and tell you that mostly. I mean, actually, if you go read the reviews, people are finally talking about it. But I'm a really talented guy. I'm a talented filmmaker. I was born an artist. It's not actually been a very fruitful life for me, but I've never been able to escape it because it's my heart and soul. It's everything that I am. And we are our only benefit. We're our only our only voice. Just because we have, I kind of lost my track of thought, just because I really get so fucking upset about this stuff. Like I get so, your channel, right? Like you cover so many topics that are topics that it just has me like screaming for justice, and I think that it starts with us starting to recognize maybe that there are people out there who like, maybe we just listen. Like you don't have to fucking buy into somebody's story. You don't have to say, yes, okay, that's it, but listen, pay attention. Pull back the veil, the curtains, whatever, look, find out if there's merit to these claims, and don't make assumptions. Like the worst part about it is like when people want to, like when you speak out, my experience is that when you speak out, or in my speaking out at least, where people are just like, they're very quick to question me in a way that implies some kind of deception by me, as opposed to just questioning me objectively, like, well, can we go over any possible, is there a reason that they could make up, like a question like that would be more like, is there a reason why they might say something like this, as opposed to where it's normally phrased as like, well, in a way that, like I said, paints me as a potential, sort of as my claims being potentially, deceptive. And I think that's why a lot of people don't speak out in the first place. Like the bodies pile up in part because when we speak out, we get fucked up for doing it, and our lives are ruined. They're gone. Like our careers or whatever are gone. If anyone literally, like if Ben Affleck decided to take it to the next level and publicly speak out about it, or protest by not doing movies, he was finished, because Harvey Weinstein still had the power of everybody else who was complicit through their silence. And it's like, I want to give also, like, this is very interesting, Aaron. You'll find this very interesting. We get different slants of things. Like, so if somebody asked me, well, what, I knew bad shit was happening with Harvey Weinstein. Like, I knew that. I knew it was like definitely, a disgusting dude taking advantage of people. But I had no idea that it was rape and all this other stuff, because the way it gets presented to me is more like it's a casting couch situation. Like, here's the sickest part of it, dude. Like, I spent probably 1995 and 1996 and 1997, maybe even into 1998, thinking that women were completely compromising themselves and having sex with a foul human being. That's how it was presented to me. It wasn't presented to me. It was presented to me as they were the awful ones, the bad ones, the pathetic ones. So there's that too, right? There's the twists that happen internally that allow complicity to happen at the lower levels. Like, so as far as I knew, he was just leveraging his fame and power to bang gorgeous actresses. But he was actually.
So if I understand correctly, would the argument there be that if you have an extremely famous, powerful movie producer, and would the argument be that if he's basically saying, who wants to be in my next movie, first one to sleep with me gets the role, is the argument there, that's immoral, but it's not illegal? Is that like how that would be explained away for people who knew that was his reputation?
I think what it does is it's misogyny at its greatest in the case of, it's like pure misogyny. What it does is it paints the picture that the woman is this weak, pathetic person who's going to go and compromise every morality that she has to advance her career, right? So what they're doing is they're painting the victim, right? And this is what they do, right? They're painting the victim as being, the problem, right? Shaming. They're shaming the victims, right? So it's a spin, and it's an effective one because I feel guilty about it. I literally have thought about it multiple times, especially during his trial, but just remembering like how I thought about those women. It just gets me upset to the point of like almost tears, because it's just like holy shit, I literally thought they were pigs. I thought the women were pigs, because that's how it's coming down to you. So I'm just saying, like, there's so much involved in all of this, So when you hear somebody speak of the actual crime, you hear something, somebody speak about something really terrible that happened to them, I think it's time to, I hope we're coming now to a place where we're listening to them first with an open mind and an open heart and empathy, and the idea that this might be true, and that we have to spend, close and special attention to that, because all of our lives fucking, are important to us. Our futures are important to us. To have somebody bully and destroy your life for any reason is something that we should all reject, and we should stand up against. And it doesn't matter where that person is, but we embolden them and we give them power with their fame and their money. And, at some point we have to, kind of take some personal accountability there as well.
I was just thinking, there's a remarkable similarity between what someone who, for example, Jane Doe 1 in the Danny Masterson case, Danny's criminal defense team would basically, or maybe Scientology's defense team would say something like, oh, well, you could have just gone to the police. And she didn't. So something must not have happened. Now, she did later go to the police. So this is just sort of a theoretical conversation right here. But someone like Jane Doe 1, who was in a position of, sure, she could go to the police. She could go to the police, and she could lose everyone and everything she'd ever known as a result of it. Now, Jane Doe 1 ended up going to the police anyway, which is what makes it so powerful. Yep. Now, you take someone like Rose McGowan. Somebody could go, and for the sake of this story, I do not know if and when Rose McGowan I don't know when Rose McGowan went to the police compared to when she was assaulted. Take any of those facts out of this story. Right. Someone could go, well, Rose could have gone to the police. Why would she expect other people to go? Rose could have gone to the police. And you go, sure. If she wanted to throw away all of her professional hopes and dreams that she'd had for her entire life. Like, there's something to be said for the stakes being so high, and the power that the abusers in these situations wield over the victims, that it is one of those things where it's like any answer seems impossible. Like the likelihood of being able to hold the abuser accountable when the stakes are so high and the abuser wields so much power, it's why it becomes such an impossible situation. I think it's why the Harvey Weinstein thing goes on for so long when everyone seems to have known about it. The victims don't want to come forward because they actually want to have careers. His equals or contemporaries don't want to be the ones to report it because it's like, why is that their fight? And it becomes a thing where no one wants to hold that hot potato. And the similarities to Scientology, I guess the dynamics in play here hold true, I guess, in any industry where, power is wielded almost absolutely at the top. And that dynamic exists in high control groups and cults like Scientology, for sure. I mean, Scientology at any moment in time wields the power of getting you disconnected from all your friends and family who've ever been in your life. And not only that, if you believe in Scientology, you believe that Scientology is your only hope for eternal spiritual salvation. And by getting kicked out, you're basically doomed to an eternity of amnesia. Like, that's a power to wield over that's a lot of power to wield over a person. It's
life altering, life destroying. Yeah. And they use it. They use it so flippantly too, don't they? Like, they just use it like you would use like a condiment. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? There's no regard and respect for life and like for like individual lives. There's this like class disparity too, like huge class disparity, like people who are struggling financially, or who are, you know, sort of like, you know, lower on the you know, on the food chain. Those people are, yeah, I mean, they have a whole other level of sort of barrier to entry, and it's held by all these powerful, you know, people who are like, you know, schmoozing with the oligarchs. I keep bringing up the oligarchs because part of what keeps these people in power and why they're going to stay in power, a lot of the destruction that we see around the earth is just being, you know, wielded by these guys who are slinging, you know, collectively trillions of dollars in various industries. They're very diverse, right? Whether it's your oil in the Middle East or your entertainment in Hollywood, they're running all of that, and so these people are protected, and that's why the tie between Scientology and Hollywood is so important, and all the other resources that these kinds of corruption, or the corrupt Hollywood Scientology sort of tie together is an important recognition, right? Because, you know, it's, yeah, I mean, I'm just amazed by how much of it we don't know and don't see, but it's so obviously there, because you ask about how people can skirt away. How do people get away with it? Why is Leonardo DiCaprio so completely protected that he you know, he can act with such disdain for others and for his environment and for the art craft? What fucking artist destroys art over a personal grudge? What true artist does that? It's just unfathomable to me. I can't imagine it. It's yeah, I mean, it's just, fuck, man. It's so nuts. It really is.
You know, the power dynamics that we're talking about here, and considering how strong they are, is what makes it even more incredible when someone does finally get held accountable, whether it's Bill Cosby because Hannibal Buress made a joke that everyone thought was a joke until he's like, no, Google it. Bill Cosby rapes people. Like, at first, everyone laughed. They thought it was a punchline. They thought, you're saying the most disgusting thing possible about one of the most beloved figures possible. Everyone in the theater laughed. And he's like, no, Google it. That was the beginning of the end of Bill Cosby. And when you see people finally fall, finally be held accountable, like Diddy, and you go, wow, despite the power dynamics of like Harvey Weinstein eventually, you know, yeah. But after so long, I'm not familiar enough with how Harvey Weinstein, I'm not familiar enough with his entire story to know how those dominoes finally fell. It seems a little more clear to me, just, I guess I'm paying more attention to the press. It seems a little more clear to me what has happened with Diddy. But it also comes down to, it eventually requires intervention from someone who does not have anything to lose from the industry itself. They exist exterior to the power dynamics of the industry, whether it's a U.S. attorney or something like that.
Yeah, or some guy like me who's just going to write a book from his freaking apartment because he's got nothing left to do.
Right? Have you received any threats whatsoever from Leo's team?
No, he's I don't think he can do anything here effectively. The problem that he's faced with is that if he sues me, I get to sue him back. I'm gonna win. I have receipts. I have receipts. They're not gonna fucking win. They can't win this. You know, I mean, not without a lot of corruption, which I won't discount as a possibility. But, you know, bar any of that, if it's fact for fact, I'm gonna win. I can't lose. I just cannot be lose. I can't. You know, there's just I have a paper trail. I like I said, I bring receipts. You know, and if I may, I want to clarify some things, because like there's as far as like, you know, me talking about receipts and timing and all this other stuff, you know, we are also like victims of these kinds of things. We're also thrust into this world where we're supposed to somehow carry all these things. Like, I would have never spoken about these indiscretions publicly ever. I would have never unless I knew that a crime was committed. So it's a situation where until it came to a point where I had to defend myself, right? It was a matter of defense, because if he's going to attack my character, I'm going to say, well, here's the character of the man attacking my character, right? Like, we're going to go back. If it's about character, let's go toe to toe on that. I think I can win that all day long. I just don't have the power to get that message out. But yeah, I mean, it's just wild being in these particular situations and having to deal with the fact that when you speak out, you're going to be dealing with more power than you could possibly imagine, and more corruption than you can possibly imagine around it. And people are going to support that behavior in order to protect their position. And it's fucking horrible to become compromised by it. It really is. When I was in that situation, watching this stuff go down with Emily Foster, it all went through my head. I'm standing right there going, this is bullshit. If I say something, I'm screwed. Those are the two things that happened. And then 2 minutes later, she was brought to climax. Everyone dispersed, and Christmas was ruined. I mean, I use the word Christmas loosely, by the way. I'm not religious, but it was a day of I was very fond of as far as celebrating it, as a holiday. Yeah. So anyway, went on a little bit. Sorry.
A hell of a way to ruin Christmas. For anyone joining us more recently, Dale's book is Too Real, a Hollywood memoir. Let me see. There was a question here that I wanted to ask you. Oh, Wolf of Wall Street. If I remember correct, you mentioned Leonardo DiCaprio having to go testify in front of a grand jury. Isn't it that there was this strange character who had basically somehow embezzled hundreds and millions or billions of dollars from the Indonesian government?
Yeah, Malaysian. It might have
Malaysian government.
There was a Malaysian tourist trust fund or something like that.
A complete con artist spending money from like the government's own funds, and
currently on the run, by the way.
Oh, he's currently a fugitive?
He's a fugitive, yeah.
And it turns out he was like the main financier behind the Wolf of Wall Street movie, and that's how Leonardo DiCaprio not only got paid so much money for the movie, but was also paid in like Picasso paintings and stuff like this. Did
you read that in the book?
I did, but I realized I had already read it before too.
It's so infuriating to me, But yeah, 1/3 of that $90+ million budget went into Leonardo DiCaprio's pocket in payment in cash and in art. And that art, Picasso and Basquiat paintings, both of those paintings were valued at $11 million, and then he forfeited them at once all this shit came out about this Malaysian this fraud and whatever else. It's just so infuriating, like, I mean, independent artists struggle to do anything, to get anything done, to get anything made. And this fucking guy's getting paid in Picassos and driving up budgets and driving up cost to get in. And, I mean, he's one of many. I'm not saying Leonardo DiCaprio is solely responsible for any of this, but it's that mentality, right? That greed. It's just so pervasive. They just fucking ruin everything. I don't get it. They ruin everything. All these fucking power. As soon as these people get powerful, they ruin everything. It's just insane. Look at Ice Cube. Like, Ice Cube was this down to earth, like, rapper guy, like fighting against the oppressive nature of LA, law enforcement, all sort of shit. And now he's just like a piece of shit. And it's just money. It's all money that made that happen, and the protection of it in their society. That's what Scientology is fighting for right now. They're not fighting for their congregation. Do you think they're fighting to keep people in, or are they just fighting to keep their billions of dollars in assets?
Yeah, they clearly do not seem to be fighting to keep people in. They seem only to be fighting to protect, honestly, David Miscavige's reputation. Like, it seems to be the only thing they actually care about. They couldn't possibly care about attracting new members. I've seen some internal statistics recently that show Scientology is very quickly collapsing. And if they actually cared about that, they could pretty easily implement some changes that would stop the bleeding and perhaps turn it around. So they clearly don't care about that. It's funny. I'll take a slight digression here.
Yeah, cool.
Because you want to talk about Scientology trying to protect all of its money. It's funny, as a former Scientologist, I was horrified to discover Scientology actually had several billion dollars in assets. I was always led to believe we were basically broke, which is why everyone always needed to donate so much money to keep the operation going, like it was fighting for our very survival. When I found out Scientology had billions in the bank, I was very angry. Another way of looking at it is, in the world at large, corporate world, nonprofit world, academia world, the world of government, a few $1 billion is nothing.
No.
Nothing. I think the IRS annual budget is like $70 billion.
And it's not enough for them to be able to even fight the rich guys.
Why would the IRS ever bother going through a 5, 10, 15, 20-year legal battle to revoke Scientology's tax exemption just to be able to get a piece of their revenue or their assets? They would spend more money in litigation than they would ever recoup from Scientology afterwards. It's interesting to put things into perspective sometimes. But to the government, Scientology's assets are probably meaningless. But to Scientology and to David Miscavige, being able to continue to control a few billion and have real estate all over the world and I don't know, have a few thousand adoring worshipers, I think that's what he's protecting at this point.
And the lies, right? The vault of their inhumanity, right? I mean, they're protecting their lies. They have to be.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And if Miscavige is already like 60, 65 years old or something, he's only got so many more years that he's got to hang on to this charade before it's someone else's problem anyway, right? So I get the impression he's not exactly doing some long-term planning here.
Do you think the church is done after him?
It depends on what you mean by done. As long as they enjoy tax-exempt status, they'll never truly be done because their overhead is almost zero. Like they don't pay property taxes. I guess in some countries around the world, they do pay property taxes. But if we're just talking about the U.S. for now,
the bulk of their
money. They don't pay property tax and they don't have a payroll. Like if they don't make any money, they don't have payroll. Like payroll is just a percentage of the adjusted gross income every week. Sea Org members can be paid $0. Staff members can be paid $0. So the operating costs of the Church of Scientology is electric and water and insurance.
Amazing. And then everything else they buy is their own, like just spending of the
that's
wealth.
Right. That's right. And if they were really so cash poor that they couldn't even keep the electric on, there's plenty of non-core properties that if they had to divest, they could. So like, unless they lose tax exemption, they're not ever going to be done per se. But that's why I like measuring the success of Scientology in terms of pure membership. Because you don't have to take away their tax exemption to drive their membership to near zero. I mean, they're driving their own membership to near zero as we speak. And so it would be wonderful if eventually we could succeed in getting Congress to take action and putting, pressure on the members of the Ways and Means Committee, to put pressure on the IRS to revoke the tax exemption. But the IRS itself has no actual motivation to go after Scientology's tax exempt status. And that's an interesting thing to consider or to understand.
It is, because it's like the biggest. I love this point because it shows the disparity that we're all fucking dealing with, right? Like I can't fight Leonardo DiCaprio financially. He's got, he's always going to have me out publicized, out, legally maneuvered. He's always going to have this extra power. And I think it's a really good point that you're making, because it changes the game. It makes them impenetrable in many ways and impervious to most of what we are dealing with. You hear it all the time with Trump and everything. Is just like everybody screaming, "Oh, if one of us did that shit, we'd be in jail for the rest of our fucking lives," and all this other stuff. And all that is true. All of that is true. When you have money, power, and influence, the rules change for you, and it makes fighting against that almost impossible. And that's why I love your show. That's why I love shows like this. Because we now have voices that we never had. I lived before the internet, right? I had to live through this before the internet. And then as the internet began and grew into what it is today, I didn't necessarily afford the opportunities that I have today to truly speak out. I'm gaining more supporters than anybody, than any kind of detractor, numbers. Most people are reading my book. Most people that read my book come away from it, with a lot of knowledge. The cool thing about the book is it's a fun ride and there's all these cool things, but it also really sort of brings out exposes the way in which corruption works, even at these little sort of almost high school levels. But it's at that level where things really get fucking nasty, and lives and careers are cut short. It is so fortunate that nobody from Don's Plum has committed suicide. And I came very close. It was a terrible time in my life. I go over it in the book very briefly because it's not something I necessarily want to concentrate on. But that's the level of destruction that they bring. Is that it's literally to me a miracle. It's not literally a miracle, but to me it's a miracle that none of us has taken our own lives from this. It's just crazy what they do, and they just don't care. But they're so emboldened by their power and by their status, and that's why I think there's this corroboration or collusion between these kinds of powers, because I think they swap resources. I think there's just so much to gain when you both have similar motives. Because do you think oligarchs are going to give a fuck why Scientology wants to be Scientology? Not at all. They're not going to care about that. That's just numbers, man. It's just numbers. And we're on the other end of that. So I just love that these platforms exist, and that we have this opportunity now. We get to speak out. I'm gaining support by the minute. I've been fighting for 10 fucking years, Aaron. I mean, more than that, but in 2014 is when I spoke out, because I ran into, the book goes into it, so I won't bore you with it too much, but I ran into somebody blocking my career because of Don's Plum and Leonardo DiCaprio in 2014, almost 20 years after making Don's Plum, after rolling film for the first time. And that's when I had enough. And I wrote that open letter. And so I've been fighting for 10 years. And, so many of your audiences are hearing this shit for the first time, or what they're hearing about it is like, now they're finally getting some of the depth to it. Maybe they got some surface stuff. Oh, there's a movie that DiCaprio is trying to stop. Maybe more people know about that than I might think, but few people know about the actual story. And so, it's platforms like this and opportunities like this that create it. And I just think you guys are fucking amazing for doing that. I'll always be forever grateful.
Thank you. One of the things about coming to terms and actually confronting the reality of the power dynamics that are at play and the things that are outside of your control. Like, for example, you said you can't do Battle Direct with Leonardo DiCaprio. I'll outspend you, 1,000,000 to 1. One of the things about coming to terms with those realities is it does allow you to focus in on what you can control. And that's what I like to think I do on my channel. Yeah. I cannot control whether the IRS takes away Scientology's tax exemption. I can do little things that I hope will help dominoes fall to eventually lead to that result. But what I can control is putting out videos that reach as far and wide as possible, that are as interesting as I can make them, that will educate people about Scientology, that will either prevent people from getting in or give people who are under the radar a little bit of a courage and motivation and a little bit of backbone to know, okay, I'm definitely going to leave when the time is right. That's all I can do. And because I'm realistic about what it is I'm trying to do, it also allows me to keep going without feeling like I'm failing. On quite the opposite. I feel like I'm succeeding at what I'm trying to do, regardless of what the IRS or Congress is doing. I think it helps to be realistic. Well, I could say you have inspired me. When I started writing this book in 2020, and I don't remember you were covering Danny before that, because I remember, or you were just covering him shortly after that. I don't remember when did you start your channel exactly? The channel's been around for 9 years. I didn't start uploading every day until about 2.5 years ago. So was the second trial that you were? The second trial is the one that I was reporting on every day. Yeah. Okay. So, because I think it was like, maybe it was the underground, somebody underground. That's right. The Underground Bunker blog was reporting on the first trial. Yeah. I love that dude. Yeah. So he was the first guy, but yeah, anyway, just like it's an effective thing. I've been writing since 2020, your channel, Andy's channel, and just I think there's a bit of a zeitgeist of people who are standing up, what's happening with Diddy. This actually, the open letter that I wrote in 2014 was inspired by a book by Molly Bloom called Molly's Game. You familiar with it? I'm not, no. It's actually a movie now. That's why I asked. It's a movie with Aaron Sorkin. But anyway, she wrote this book. She was a poker madam in Los Angeles. And she wrote a book because her life as a poker madam was destroyed by Toby Macguire. And so she wrote a book about it. Really? And I was sitting around in 2014 in the sort of fucking ash of this new problem, right? I met this producer. He was going to make my movie. He found out about Don's Plum. He got it off. 2014. So I'm just depressed. I'm in a really bad shape. And then this book comes out and I hear that Toby's a shit in it. So I'm like, well, that'll fucking cheer me up. So, I read it and it not only cheered me up, but it made me go yeah, I can have a voice. And so weeks after reading it, I wrote an open letter to Leonardo DiCaprio and began my journey with Free Don's Plum. So what you're doing works, and it reaches people and it emboldens us to feel like we have a place to come home to. I have nowhere to go.
mainstream media is kicking me out as you know, like that, right? They're gonna side with the oligarchs. They're gonna keep it quiet. They're gonna keep my story down. I have nowhere to go except to people like you. So not only you're inspiring, but you're also creating a platform for people to have this. And you know, I don't care how many people in this audience decide that they don't believe me or they don't want to support me, but I do care about the ones that do. And everyone that comes aboard, you know, makes this process. It progresses this. It progresses my healing. Like the healing's a big deal. Like, you know, when you there's a certain amount of validation that comes from people like hear your story and they're like, you know, fuck that, that's wrong. It just makes me stronger. Every time I hear fuck that, that's wrong, I'm just getting better and bigger. And yeah, so it's just wonderful that we now live in an era where people like you can. And I just you know, I thought about like, should I start a channel about, you know, survivors? And I think it's a great idea, but I don't know if I have it in me the way that, you know, people like you and Andy and others do, where you guys just have such great purpose and you create such great opportunities for people to speak out and get support. Not just people like me who have a message and a book to sell, but also, you know, the people who just need to hear the comfort.
Yeah.
Just to know they're not alone.
Well, short of that, you know, I'd be happy to make some introductions to some people who have bigger channels than mine, who I think would be interested in having you on and help you to continue to get your word out here. For those of you just joining us, Dale's book is, okay, good, I got it here. Too Real, a Hollywood memoir. You can get it on Amazon.
Can you do me a little favor? Just because it's kind of fun. Can you go back to that? I just want to like just a little book promotion. If you click on the ratings, go to the 2-star ratings. I just want to show you something.
2-star?
Yeah, go to the 2-star ratings.
Okay.
I know this is bold, right? Look at this 2-star rating. And this is just because like this person just decided that they don't like me. And so they gave me a 2-star rating. But look at the beginning of that.
What, you want me to read it out loud?
Yeah, read it out loud for your readers. Because the reason I'm asking you, I'll do it if you want me to. But the reason I'm asking you to do this is because, like, you know, there's one thing to slog a book, and then there's another thing to be like, to have poured my heart and soul in this, because this message is more important to me than just hearing, you know, you getting a chance to hear what I have to say. And so I did everything. I poured years and years of work into this to make this an opportunity for people to get informed, but also enjoy it. And so I worked so hard to make it artful. And so this 2-star review is probably the best review I've ever gotten. And I just want to share it with you.
Go ahead, read it out loud if you can see it. Okay. If you can't see it, I'm happy to read it.
Yeah, I can't.
Okay, good. It says there's a couple of sentences in here that are literary art, the kind of sentences you want to read again and again. He obviously has a great potential and talent for writing. The insight and detail into the Hollywood life is indeed real and interesting. The descriptions of
there. You can stop there because we don't know what's going on. Isn't that fucking amazing? So I just wanted to point that out because it's there's two things that's going on here. First of all, this person obviously appreciates the work, and I thank you for reading that. I'm sorry I couldn't read it, but I just wanted to share that with people because you know, it's not just about like reading a book that's full of some guy just ranting about some shit. You know, this is it's a piece of art, and it's awesome that I can use art as a means to get a message out that I think it can help and inspire people in the same way that you do through your channel, and others as well through their means. You know, thank you for that.
Awesome.
Thank you for indulging me in that.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Shall we jump through some of these starred comments real quick? Do you mind?
Yeah, please.
Okay. Jill Davidson, thank you for gifting a channel membership. That's awesome. Kim Ferguson says, Beyonce on stage tonight, but refuses to speak on her and her husband's involvement with Diddy. I mean, I don't blame her. I wouldn't speak on it either, but I probably wouldn't be out there in the public eye. I mean, I don't know. I mean, they're screwed. What are your thoughts on this? Do you know anything about this?
I mean, I'm following the story because it's so bloody interesting and terrible, and obviously I'm rooting for the victims here. Yeah, I mean, they're here's the thing, they're screwed. Let's watch what happens. Let's see who survives. Right, as soon as that lawyer came out, I don't know if you saw that, but this lawyer came out like whatever it was a couple of weeks ago, and he was like, "Oh, the shit I have will destroy our view of Hollywood and so on and so forth." You know what I'm talking about? The lawyer he filed all these lawsuits. Okay. A lawyer for Diddy came out and he just filed all these lawsuits. He was about to file lawsuits, came out with 120 more victims, a bunch of underage. Remember all that?
Yes.
Okay. That is like that is like straight up like write me a check, write me a check, write me a check. There's a lawyer asking for checks. That is a lawyer asking for checks, and a bunch of people sitting back saying, write me a check and I shut up, write me a check and I shut up, write me a check and I shut up. So, and I saw that coming, and days later, all of a sudden it broke out that celebrities are buying tapes. This is obvious. So the thing is that are they screwed? They're not screwed. They're not screwed unless the tape gets out. They're not screwed unless there's pure and total corroboration, the way in which Johnny Depp had to deal with that and with him and Amber Heard, right? So can they get away with it? They're going to get away with it. Who's going to get away with it? I don't know, but are people going to get away with it? All over the place. Leo DiCaprio is in Italy enjoying his life, laying low, and I guarantee you that his people are taking care of the business. They're taking care of the business. They're taking care of me. I've already run into it. Every major feature press that I had lined up has completely gone away now. As soon as the book got released, it's gone away. They went away. Prior to the book, they were all over it. And I anticipated this. So, they're going to, are they screwed? I don't think they're screwed. No, I don't think they're screwed at all. I think they have more money and resources. I think the reason why they're out there public facing is because they know that they're going to be able to control this narrative. And they're going to, and now, are they scared? They're probably just terrified. Is there a giant risk that everything is going to come toppling down for them? There's a giant risk that everything is going to come toppling down. But they have the money, they have the resources, they have the charisma, and they have the fan base. And those things are fucking practically impossible to stop. It's wild.
That's a really good point. Yeah. Soon says, Aaron saying a 500 plus page book is long. Adorable. 500 pages is long. It's not the longest, but it's long.
It's longer than publishers would like to put out. That's true.
It's longer than a book less than 500 pages. Come on now, people. All right. Free translate. For years, people have been trying to warn others about celebrities just under different names. Satanic rituals, Illuminati, lizard people. And the media tried to tarnish the word lizard people. But that's because the people saying lizard people were being literal. Free translate. Come on. I mean, they're literally calling them shape-shifting lizard people. I mean, I don't think it was a metaphor. I think they were being literal, which is why they were dismissed. But what do I know? I grew up in a cult. Black and blessed. Is that really what this says? Oh yeah, black and blessed. Okay. I hope when people get to Hollywood or music, when the evil people enter your space, believe they are evil and don't make excuses for them.
Let me see that again. When people, that's a really cool statement.
Yeah. When I think about the Harvey Weinstein thing, I can just imagine someone who's been working really hard and working their guts out to try to get a breakthrough in the industry. And they feel, this opportunity gets presented to them and it's a Harvey Weinstein project. And, they don't necessarily, they probably feel like it's their only chance. And then they're like, oh my God, I can't believe I can't believe I'm in this situation where it's like the opportunity that I want is right there. And if they didn't feel like they had to choose between all of their hopes and dreams and essentially being assaulted, it's like I guess I'm trying to look at two sides of this thing, because Hollywood producers, I think there's this sort of, at least in popular culture, this idea that they're all sleazy, just like music producers. They're just all sleazy. Yeah. And so if it was an up and coming actress or an actor, and they actually felt like they had the opportunity, right? Like their hopes and dreams weren't being gate kept by a disgusting predator, and I wonder whether, I know where I was going when I started this thought.
I gave you my disease.
It had to do with what happens in an industry where it's not like there's one bad guy and you can avoid that bad guy and deal with all the good guys. Like what happens in an industry when the gatekeepers of power have all over time, because of the corrupting influence of power, become bad guys. And I guess I'm not sitting here saying that I can say definitively all the gatekeepers in Hollywood are bad guys, but it kind of starts to seem that way, because otherwise, how did so many people have to get funneled through Harvey Weinstein and his abuse machine. It certainly didn't help that the Academy, who obviously, I can assume, knew all of the rumors about Harvey that everyone else did, just kept giving the guy Oscars, where it's like, okay, so now if you want an Oscar, go to the guy who is a disgusting predator. And I guess the reason I went down that train of thought is because the comment was kind of like, when you get to Hollywood or you get to the music industry and the evil people enter your space, know them for who they are and basically get rid of them. And you go, yeah, but what if it's all the gatekeepers? Or what if it's 50% of the gatekeepers? What if it's 10% of the gatekeepers, but the only opportunities being afforded to you are the ones with that gatekeeper? It makes those decisions much more difficult.
I knew the gatekeepers, and they were afraid. They're just afraid. Like everybody's afraid of losing. Everybody's afraid of losing. You know, I told you that story about how the way Harvey Weinstein's indiscretions were described to me by people who worked directly for him was that these women were compromising themselves. You know, I think there's less bad people and more afraid people. The bad people are, so there's, you know, we have this idea of fame and money and power corrupting, and it's true. It's like true. You know, like it's easy to kind of like dismiss it, or it's easy to believe that it's not a universal, that can't be just applied. But I think in Hollywood, and I think in other industries, I've noticed it everywhere. It's in churches, like regular Christian churches, Scientology, culty churches. It doesn't matter what church it is. You know, almost doesn't matter what church there is. You're going to probably find corruption at some level, and power corrupts. Ultimate power corrupts, and money corrupts, and so what happens is when that person becomes corrupt, that hugely powerful, rich, influential person corrupts. Once they corrupt, they already have the power. They've seized the power, right? Everyone's scared about what Donald Trump's going to do if he wins, right? Because we're all, you know, at least those of us who are afraid of him are afraid that he's going to potentially go in and try to change the world again and turn us into this fascist state or whatever. And the reason, and it's good that they feel that way, because this is what power, corrupt power does. And it happens in Hollywood, it happens in churches, it happens everywhere. Now, if you're really powerful and you have all that corruption, and you're fucking threatening me, who's not powerful and who is not corrupt, but who is trying to survive, who has a family, who has a mortgage, right? Who has a future. I mean, I think the power of the corrupt is a form of suppression, oppression. It's a form of silent complicity. You know,
that's how it works. That's how it happens.
Yeah.
Mrs. Bramlett Jr. Bijou also allegedly choked actress Heather Matarazzo and tried to get her to relapse before they filmed Hostel 2.
I heard that one as well.
Wow.
She is a foul person, and I have no fucking discretion. Like, she's a foul person. Foul.
Yeah.
Of the most.
I guess. Yeah. So this must be in reference to you saying your camera battery was going to go out. Don't worry, Dale. We had a year of Aaron's lights going out as well. Yeah. Irina Posner, I do not personally know Bijou, so don't want to defend her too much, but Scientology encourages violence. Punishment for violence was less than for talking back or for questioning or being 1-1. Yeah.
If you go up to a guy and you have a cigar and you pick up his cigar cutter and you say, stick your finger in it, and he does, and then you close it and you yank it. Like, is that violence, or is that like what is that? That's like there's something elevated there. There's some kind of, like, I'm not a psychologist, but there's a disorder. Like, that stinks like a disorder and not like a corruption. Do you know what I mean? Like like, apparently I was not there. This was all rumor, but when it happened, she squealed with delight, and this guy had to have reconstructive surgery.
Totally sick. Vanessa Winbury, I ran into Juliette Lewis in an elevator at the Fort Harrison Hotel in 1997. She was jamming out to her Discman when I got on and looked a little embarrassed. She seemed like she could have been on drugs. You know, it's funny. I think Juliette's natural energy is such that she probably kind of always seems like she's on drugs, even when she's not.
You're probably right. You're probably right. I thought she was really sweet, and it's a shame that I thought she was actually pulling away from the church. So I'm sad to hear that she did not.
Yeah, definitely not. Definitely not. Karen McCourt says, I just bought Dale's book.
Oh, man. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. And for anyone just joining, you can get his book on Amazon, Too Real, a Hollywood memoir.
Also, just to add to that, by the way, the audiobook is in production right now. So if you're an audiobook person, if you go to freedomsplum.com or dalewheatleyWrites.com, you can either pre-order or it'll be available there Christmas Day, as a matter of fact.
Cool. M. Sargent, do most or all Scientology celebrities have the same agent or the same talent agency?
No.
So I think the answer is definitely no. Obviously, the bigger actors like Michael Pena and Giovanni Ribisi and Tom Cruise, they're probably like the CAA folks. Or what are the other powerful agencies other than CAA? Some of the bigger ones.
CAA, William Morris, Endeavor.
WMA.
It's called William Morris Endeavor.
WME,
Innovative is pretty big. United Artists is huge.
Giovanni's mom, her name is Gay. Gay Ribisi was a talent agent for a lot of Scientology.
I met Gay several times.
Yeah. But other than that, and Danny Masterson's parents were in the industry, but I don't recall if she was a manager or an agent of anybody else. Does that ring a bell? Do you know?
I'm sorry, which one?
Carol Masterson?
No.
I don't think so. Okay. Magnus says Tom Cruise probably thinks his fellow Scientology actors are degraded being criminals that will make the cult look bad. Yeah. I actually thought that Tom Cruise's reluctance to promote other actors is that, God forbid, he promotes someone and then they leave Scientology and he helped raise their profile. So I feel like he's more comfortable. It's kind of like Scientology doesn't use Scientologists in their promo films or their videos anymore because they'd rather use non-Scientologists who will never be ex-Scientologists, right? Because if you're an ex-Scientologist, they can never use that
it's over.
Yeah, they can never use that product anymore.
That's very interesting.
Okay. Nisa says nowadays it's hard for any of the big name celebrities to get away with anything cruel now. Oh, I don't agree.
Do you think so? I don't think that's true, Nisa. I think it's as easy as ever. I think I think that the bodies have to stack up high enough before you break like Diddy. And by the way, how long did it take Masterson to actually like be brought down? How many years did that guy live, prosper, grow, and enjoy life while his victim sat and fought for justice? I think that what I think one of my biggest fears, Nisa, is that people are gonna in Hollywood and other corrupt industries that they're just gonna pull it back. They're just gonna dial it back so they can keep it into that that subterranean level where it won't leak out and people don't know about it. So I don't know, Nisa. Maybe you're right, but I think that that they're gonna continue to be emboldened by silent complicity of people who are in power.
Yeah, I think
And
as long as
actual,
I think as long as we're talking about just horrifically cruel behavior that doesn't go into criminal.
Yep.
And also there's one thing about getting into criminal, but it being not extensive, that a prosecutor would never bother doing anything with it. Like an NDA can silence someone forever as long as you're not talking about actual prosecutable crimes. I mean, maybe it's legally wrong to say ever. Can an NDA ever apply forever? I don't actually know.
Well, right. That's true. That's a good point. But what you're saying is that it's enforceable provided that it's enforceable for whatever the law provides, provided that it does not conceal crime. Yeah.
Right. Ken's channel. Always good to see you. Amazing interview. Can't wait to read the book and watch the film. By the way, awesome telly in the background.
Oh, I love it. It's my favorite guitar. I rip on.
I was gonna say. Is telly short for something?
Telecaster. It's this beauty right there. It's oh man, nice. I love that guitar.
Mother's Gary says this is an important discussion. Thank you. It's our pleasure.
Thank you for having me. It's so good. It's so good to be here and talking with all of you. It's great.
Susan P, thank you for being a channel member for 7 months. And Jess 3675, great interview talk. Aaron and Dale, thank you very much. Shanna says Leo played the con artist role so many times. I wonder what that means.
You know, it's so interesting you say that because I think he does play things close to home. You know, as far as him being a con artist, man, you know, I think yeah, he plays the shifty guys really well, doesn't he?
Did he? Do I have it right that the reason he had to give back those paintings is because they were basically paid for through funds that were illegally obtained from the Malaysian government? I mean, is that what it came down to?
I don't believe. I believe that. I'm thinking that the paintings belonged to the Malaysian government, or that they were purchased. Like I don't think like they were traded. I doubt that he said go buy paintings and then I'll take the paintings. Although it's entirely possible, because I'll tell you a quick little story. I was hanging out with Leo one day, and he was talking about his finances for some reason, which is something you rarely did, by the way. But it came up, and he talked about. He said that he was talking with Jack Nicholson, and Jack Nicholson told him to buy art. So it's entirely because art is not taxable, and he can take the art and he can donate the art to museums and take a huge write-off because it's a big giant like multi-million-dollar asset or whatever. So it's entirely possible. You actually, now that you brought it up and you had me think it through, it's entirely possible that he had them in a way to evade taxes, right? Go buy the art and pay me in the art. But he gave it up. He gave it back. And in my book, that's an admission of guilt. You know, he's the producer. Like everyone tries to, oh, he's not involved. He's just the actor. Fuck no, he's involved. He's the producer. It's his production company, and he should be held accountable for everything that his production company does. If he wasn't the actor and just the producer, wouldn't he be held accountable? I would be held accountable. They would want me to be held accountable for destroying those beaches and for tapping into fraudulently tapping into a taxpayer-funded tourist fund from a country in order to make your movie. It's fucking horrible. And think about this, about that piece of corruption. I'm trying to go off a little bit, but it drives me nuts. He put $11 million of painting money in his pocket in a movie that was being overfunded. It was $90 million for a talkie, right? There's no big effects in it. It's just actors. So $90 million, and I lost my track. I'm sorry. Hand it off.
To the best of your recollection, did they claw back any of the money or just the art?
As far as I know, they only got the art. He got paid two salaries. He got paid an actor's fee, a producer's fee, and then they gave him the art. It's just such a disgusting use of money. Like the amount of resources that the world could have, like the artistic world, like the film world, like there were so many ways the world could have benefited, and they were stealing from taxpayers on top of it. It's just fucking frustrating. But to think that he doesn't have a part in that, or that he doesn't know about that, is entirely naive. There's a reason why he sat for the grand jury. It's not just because he was the actor, right? There were other actors in the movie who didn't.
Marilyn Coffee Cults and Crafts says, great chat. Thank you, Dale and Aaron. Question, can you clarify your opinion on Ice Cube? There was some confusion in the chat about referring to him as a POS.
I guess you have to look it up, and forgive me if I'm jumping to conclusions, because it's entirely possible that I am. But I think that Ice Cube, from what I've read, kind of betrayed the artist. And I guess I'll just leave it at that. And I probably shouldn't have brought it up. So I apologize. And I probably shouldn't have brought it up because, I don't bring a lot of receipts to that thing, but it's more rumor stuff. And yeah, I apologize. Maybe. Are you talking about more
in the capacity of whether he has or has not sold out, or are you talking about Diddy type stuff?
No, not Diddy stuff. I'm talking about how he's just like, he's sort of like compromised. It was a bad example, but I'll paint it in this light. Leonardo DiCaprio was elevated by independent film. That's how he made it, right? He got Basketball Diaries, he got all these movies that elevated his brand, it showed off his abilities. Lasse Hallström, so on and so forth, the director, if you don't know who that is. So he worked with these people who then elevated him to the point where he was able to go and then sell the fuck completely out. Instead of paying it forward and helping finance independent film and getting young actors and young directors opportunities to rise to the occasion, he elevated budgets by taking the hugest amounts of money he could in every goddamn project he ever did, right? Which trickled down to us. We can't afford to go to the movies, right? Reasonably. You guys spend $100, $200 to go to the movies on a weekend. It's fucking so much insanity. And it all really boils down to that kind of greed. And so In Ice Cube's instance, there was a renegade. There was a man who was speaking for the people. There was a man who was fighting for the people, and that is all completely lost, in my opinion, in who he is today. And now he's staying like he's a Trumper, in my opinion. I understand him to be like a Trumper, or more on that sort of weird conservative, I want to keep my money place. And half the people who support Trump and others who are it seems like half the people are just out to protect their money. And I think that Ice Cube is an example of a person who reached a certain level of financial wealth and fame and left behind all the things that mattered that got him there in the first place. And that's just an opinion that I shouldn't have probably shared. And if you love Ice Cube, I hope you keep loving him. I got his records too. And I will always stand up for the art, man. Let the art be. They're separate things. But, if you're a bad dude, I'm going to probably say something about it.
Okay, good. That's a good clarification. Ken's channel says, Dale talks about power. Watch interviews. What was it like working with X actor? The answer will always be an over-the-top, effusive answer that they just worked with the greatest human ever so that they can get their next job.
Listen, this is Ken's channel, dude. You nailed this. I'm guilty of it. Like there's actually somebody who wrote about me who said, this guy blows DiCaprio. Sorry to be so crude, but that's what he basically said. And it's true. I was, because when I first came out with this, I was doing the same thing. I was doing the exact same thing. I was doing the same thing. I was saying, working with Leonardo DiCaprio was a life-changing experience. And it's true, it was. Not necessarily for the good, but it was a life-changing experience, right? And why was I saying that? Why was I elevating what I was saying about DiCaprio in the early part of my fight in this? Because I wanted a chance to make another movie, because I wanted to be let back in. Because I wanted the dispute to be over. I wanted my film to be released, and I wanted to be let back in to the world that I thrive in and that I believe I have a birthright to. So it's just such a stellar point, and it's one that like I am guilty of, and I'm not, I'm embarrassed to say it on the one hand, but I love that we're talking about it because I learned from it. So I just think that's a really beautiful observation and really smart.
And that observation for me is most particularly obvious when people do interviews with co-stars of Tom Cruise. I don't maybe it's because they're overcompensating for the fact that the world knows he's the poster child for a family destroying human trafficking cult, or the fact that the world knows he, disowned his biological daughter. It's so cringy to hear how his co-stars describe him, even though it's commonplace in the industry for that to happen. There's just something about the way Tom Cruise's co-stars do it where you're like, so this was definitely not only something you're doing out of your own self-interest, but this was obviously a clause in your contract, right? Tell funny, relatable story about Tom Cruise on every talk show you appear on. Like, it's got to be in their contracts.
It's yeah. I mean, they publicize each other, right? They have to. They promote each other. They're on the circuit. But yeah, it's all about getting more work. It's all about getting. There's a great Tom Cruise story in the book.
Is there really?
Yeah, I think this is a great little Tom Cruise story. He's indirectly involved in it. Like, he was in a room, and I got pissed off that he was in the room, and I started yelling.
Does it involve wrestling?
Only me wrestling with my sobriety at the moment. At that moment, I guess. Yeah.
I've been hearing a lot of Tom Cruise wrestling stories lately.
Really?
It's like Fight Club, but it's like Fight Club, but wrestling club and one-on-one.
Tom Cruise I think he was my favorite actor for so many years. It wasn't until I found out that he was so unhinged that he fell from that grace. But I just think he's like the Buster Keaton of our time. I think it's just like so unfortunate that he's in this corrupt situation, because I think he's one of the greatest talents that we've ever seen. And to see that, and that's another reason why I think I do love that there's a certain amount of separation between that, because he brings this really fucking incredible ability. I just wish he wasn't such a corrupt individual, and I wish that it wasn't at the expense of so many people that he got to where he is.
Could you imagine? It's hard to imagine Tom Cruise being bigger than he already is, but could you imagine if he actually left Scientology, how he would actually become a folk hero?
He could run for president.
Yeah. Maybe.
They would just keep playing the couch jumping scene over and over again.
All right. Well, this has been an absolute blast. Once again, let me show the viewers. You can get Dale's book on Amazon, Too Real, a Hollywood memoir. Thank you so much for doing this. This has been a lot of fun, and hearing your story and your perspective has been spectacular. So thank you.
Well, I couldn't be more grateful, and thanks to all of your viewers. Those questions were amazing, and yeah, I mean, I'm just super grateful that you provide a platform for guys like me to be able to step up and talk a little bit about what's going on. So congratulations on your channel and all this great growth you've been having. And yeah, real pleasure to be here with you today.
Thank you again. Thank you as always to everyone who watches until the very end, and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe